Aloha, this is Dr. Steve. This is Chapter 6 on page layout from the Web Development and Design Foundations with HTML5 text. This is kind of a cool chapter. Really deals a lot with what we're trying to get at with web development design. So, what should you be able to do by the end of this chapter? You should be able to describe and apply the CSS box model. I mentioned this a little bit before. This is critical. Should be able to configure margins with the CSS, configure a float. Floats are very useful. Configure fixed, relative, and absolute positioning with style sheets. Create a 2-column page layout using style sheets. Configure navigation in unordered list and style with CSS. Add interactivity to hyperlinks. Configure a web page with HTML5 structural elements, including section, article, and aside. There are more, but those would be a good start. Okay, the box model. I mentioned earlier, think of everything as a box that you get from Amazon.com. You have the content of the box. It's where that's where your goodie is, your text or your image, whatever. And you have the padding. That's the bubble wrap that goes around it. And then you have the border, which is basically the box itself. Then you have a margin on the outside of that. Now this is something you probably haven't thought a whole lot about. It's a little bit of space between the various boxes. So if you have a bunch of boxes piled up on each other, they're not really glued to one another, right? There's a little bit of air between them. That's why you can move the boxes back and forth. Well, how much air? Think of that air as being the margin, okay? So all these things take space when you're trying to figure out how and where to put these things. Okay, we'll look at the margin property. You have, of course, all 4 sides. You always think of this as a box, so 4 sides. And we can configure them as such. Here's the syntax. Here's H1 equals margin colon. So all we're dealing with is the margin, right? So 0, so it's 0, then all sides. 20 and 10, then 20 deals with top and bottom, 10 deals with left and right. Margin 10, 30, 20. Let's see, that's 3. How's that work again? It's top, bottom, left, right. Then the 20, 30, 0, 30, then that's in clockwise, 20, 30, 0, 30. Everything in clockwise. And then the padding, right? That's your bubble pad. Same idea, only you have to use the word padding. Not too complicated. Okay, let's take a look. Okay, here's another example here. See, there's a margin, that's kind of the space above and around that whole box. The border is the box itself. Padding, you see that's the space between the words in this case and the box. That's the second example. That's the second example, rather, you can see it looks a little bit different, right? You don't have a lot of padding there. But you can see all these things really make a difference in how your various objects look. So you have, surprisingly, a lot of different box sizing options here. There's a default value, which is this is the way it comes if you don't change it, okay? And then you can change it to whatever you want. Now, if you want to change to everything, which you already know that the default doesn't work, so change it to everything unless you change certain things again, which is not a bad idea. You can do it through this wildcard using the asterisk. Okay, example on the bottom is asterisk, so it means everything. Then box sizing, border, box. So this creates a slightly larger box, if you will. Okay, normal flow of things. Here we have a couple boxes. So the browser displays things in the order in which they are coded in the web, so top down. Right? So when you're writing, you're doing an H1 and blah, 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 and another H1, blah, blah, blah. So it does it top down. And that first example on the left there is that normal flow. Okay, one box and then another box after it. Okay. Now on the right, it's a little bit different. Here you have an outer box and an inner box. Okay, and they're coded to look a little bit different with the dashed and solid and the shaded and not shaded colors, just so you can see the difference. You don't have to do it that way. So you have an outer box that frames, if you will, an inner box. So the outer box, beginning H1, end H1, is on both sides of the inner box. That could be another H1 or an H2, whatever. You're going to use it. It's inside in any case. Flow property. In general, things go from top, down, left, right. So if you have a picture in there, it's normally just going to hang on the left. That's the normal flow. If you don't want to be on the left, you have to tell it go somewhere else. And you only can do a couple things. It's left and right. So if you look down at the bottom here at this ID YLS, it says float right. That's good. So it goes to the right margin. And then the guy says, okay, I have to give it some space, so things don't get bumped too close together. If things are too close together, they become unreadable and it looks crowded. So he says 0055. So the 00 is on top and the right side, and 55 is bottom and left side. So he's creating a little bit of space at the bottom and a little bit of space where the text is, so the text doesn't get too close. You should always do that. Make sure text doesn't get too close to your images. Clear property, excellent thing. You just want to make sure that, again, the text probably is below a particular box or thing. I think here this is done on a break. Clearly, no, I'm sorry, it's done to the H2. So the thing is, you don't want anything to continue on to the right. So we're on the left side where it says be green when enjoying, and then the next line, wildflowers. That doesn't look very good. So if you don't want it to appear that way, of course you could put in spaces, but that's kind of humbug. Or you can just clear. It's called clear. That means clear any text or anything that's to the right here and put it down below. Very useful. I encourage you to get familiar with this. Overflow deals with kind of the cutting, how you're going to deal with content that is larger than the size of the box. You can take a look. The book has a much more thorough explanation of this. You just want to make sure that things will show. Sometimes they'll scroll. That's one of the most common things. If it's too big, then it looks a little funny, but it works. It doesn't change everything else, the relationship and everything else to each other. Okay, you should understand the box model, describe the purpose of the float, and talk a little bit about clearing. Yeah, that's the first part. Okay, this is the second part here, the display property. This is cool. You maybe never even thought about it. You don't have to show things. The default is, to show, to display, but you can say display none. That means it won't be displayed. And then you say display block, which is also very useful, so you can make sure that certain things line up. The display none can be used on a number of pseudo classes or in JavaScript, so that you can get a real nice effect. Things appear and disappear. We'll see how that goes here. I'll show you. Display inline. Okay, yeah, you have a display inline and a display inline block. Okay. Display inline, we're going to be using this a lot for our horizontal navigation. You have elements, you have line items, you have bullets that you're not going to show. You're not going to show the bullets anyway, so right? You won't display them. But but you do want them to go horizontally. The natural flow for a list is top down, because that's the default. So you're going to change that to an inline formatting. Okay, wireframes. Talked a bit about wireframes before. We'll continue to talk. Highly recommend you use wireframes. 5 minutes of doing this will save you hours later on. So here's an example. Slightly different, not terribly. You have a wrapper, then this is all in the flow, natural flow here. So then you have a header, a nav, a main, and a footer, all within inside the wrapper. Right? You see each of these blocks. Boxes are inside the wrapper. Okay. The one on the right, the 2 column, looks a little bit different. We have the wrapper still around everything. Then we have a header, and then the nav and main seem to be right next to each other. So we have to figure out how we can do that. Basically, what you're going to do is float the nav left, and then you're going to indent the main, whatever the width of the nav is. So the main doesn't interfere with the nav. And then the footer at the bottom, and all those things again are inside the wrapper, so they'll move nicely with the auto margins and an 80% kind of thing. Okay, here again we're looking at that two-column layout. Two-column layouts are very useful, used a lot. Modified two columns layout or straight two columns. I'd say get familiar with this layout. It's very useful. All right, here's some code for a two-layer. Here's 80%, left, right, auto margins, some kind of color. It looks like a dark blue or something. Header, it's a layout example, I'm sure. It's a lighter color. Oh, notice by the way, okay, the header background color and the footer background color are the same. It's that CCCCFF. So those are the same. That's good to do that. Okay. H1, margin 0, padding 10. So it moves a little bit away here. Nav, float left. So I thought width 90 pixels, padding 10 pixels. So it's actually 100, right? Okay, the main, margin left. Okay, 100 pixels. Yeah, okay, so you don't want the main part here, overlapping the nav. So this makes it not do that. And then you can put a different color in. I guess he does white here, yeah. And the footer, text align, italic. Okay, makes sense. Easy enough. We'll look at it again later. Here's another one, the left nav. These files are in your student data files. We'll look at these in the next lecture. Here's a vertical navigation. Here it is. It shows you with the bullets because we haven't told it to not show the bullets. So here's the vertical navigation with the bullets not showing. Okay, list style type none. So we're not even going to tell it what kind of a list it is. Text decoration none. Yeah, nothing there. No bullets, no numbers, no nothing. Okay, and that's good. We want to use that very commonly. It's very useful for navs. Horizontal navs look exactly the same as far as the HTML is concerned. No different. It's the CSS. Okay. So UL list style type none. Text decoration none. Padding right. Okay. All the same. The LI, so this is a contextual selector, so or descendant if you like. LI inside the nav, display in line. So display it horizontally in a line. Okay, so that makes it horizontal. Easy enough to understand. Pseudo classes, I mentioned these. You have these are the most common pseudo classes. There are some other ones. They're attached to the A or the anchor tag. That's the thing that is clicked on the most, that your mouse goes over the most. So you have link, visited, focus, hover, and active. The two you're probably most familiar with are link and visited, blue and then purple. Those happen automatically. And then the other ones you might be familiar or might not. You're welcome to read up a little bit on this. Pseudo classes here we have a link, a hover. Hover is very useful. So here we're changing the link from whatever color this is to this color here, and we're taking away the underline. Okay, so when you hover over it, hover means your mouse goes over it. It changes from an arrow to a nice good finger, I call it, the good finger. Header text, replacement, image. Replacement, what? Image replacement, sorry. Yes. So what happens is sometimes you get a client, and the client really wants the header in particular to look a certain way, but that certain way is a font that people don't normally have. So you have a couple different ways of dealing with it. Either you have to tell the user to download this font, and they might or might not, and if they don't, then it's going to look funny. The other way is to make it an image. And if you make it an image, then you still want to make that header accessible, that is readable by screen readers and by bots that are going out there trying to categorize the web. So we use different ways of doing that. We can change the the overflow to hidden. You can indent it, a whole bunch of pixels. The textbook talks about one way, this talks about another way. It still makes it visible. I mean, it still makes it accessible to these bots and stuff. It's just not visible. Position properties. Oh yeah, so we have your normal position, this default value is static. You have fixed, don't move. Relative is in relation to where it should be in the normal flow. And absolute, which you're going to use pixels to talk left and right, x and y pixels. Absolute could be a big problem because you don't know the how big of a screen the user has necessarily, and it can look kind of funny. Okay, well here's the one called position fixed for the nav. It's already on the left. Apparently, also somebody also floated it left, and then the navigation just stays there. So the right part can go up and down. You can see the difference in the two different images, but the nav stays exactly where it is. It doesn't change. So that's actually very easy to do, and it's kind of fun. Relative positioning. So here we're positioning it relative to where it would normally be. So you have to state position relative, left 30 pixels. So I want it to be from the left 30 pixels to the right. So you see the words this paragraph uses blah blah blah. That's 30 pixels to the right of where it would be otherwise. Otherwise it would be right in right with relative positioning, that header. Okay, absolute. Again, position absolute, left and top. You can actually use left top, or you can even use bottom right, whatever you want. Left top is the most commonly used because, again, the browser renders top, down, left, right. So the top left quadrant is your best quadrant for using absolute position because it probably won't change as much. You put stuff in the bottom right, you don't have any idea where it's going to be. Debugging, CSS, the Jigsaw is an excellent CSS validator. Have another person look at your stuff. Adding comments is really good. Comments are done for CSS comments. You do / asterisk, and at the end asterisk / that's used for a lot of languages actually. The HTML one where you use the exclamation is not as commonly used. Okay, some structural elements here. We have header where you might expect it to be towards the top. The nav holds the navigation. The main element holds most of everything you want. And the footer is the stuff down at the bottom. These again are useful for bots that are scouring the web. Aside, this is also a real nice section. Also, again, this is kind of using publication terminology. You have section and article. This is a lot of that kind of publication influence. Time elements are useful. You want to display the time. You can do this in a number of different ways in HTML and JavaScript. Yeah, plenty of ways. Block display. Okay, you see here they've done everything they could think of. Then display block. You could have done the same thing with an asterisk. Display block. And you can configure a class. Oh, okay. I want you to do a class. So use the dot notation in the style sheet, right? Put a dot then any word you want. Then you have to, of course, call it after you've configured it. So it's only good for that that page. You can use the hash mark and style sheet. Then you have an ID attribute, which means you can use it once in that page. Okay, you should understand a little bit about structural elements, a little bit about debugging, and which selector to choose, I guess. All right, let's get to the end here. A lot to do with the box models, pseudo classes, 2-column layouts, real good. Please be sure you become very familiar with that, and a few other structural elements. That's about it. I'll see you later. Aloha.